Hey everyone, Justin Conroy, Financial Dad here, and today I want to talk about the method that I use when I buy cars from dealerships, because if you've never been part of that process before and you don't know what to expect, you'll most likely get taken advantage of. Not all car salesmen are slimeballs, but unfortunately about 98% of the ones that I've dealt with have been. The few good ones that I've met are usually the ones that I end up buying from in the end, but finding them is nearly impossible. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 6-step process that I use to buy cars, what to expect at each phase, how to find the right salesman, and how to hopefully not get taken advantage of when it comes to the price of the car that you want. Now, I don't claim that this is the end-all, be-all, best method out there, but it's how I've always done things, and I've always been pretty happy with the price that I'm able to get at the end of the day. Real quick before we start, if you like this video and you're into personal finance, money management, and wealth building content, please consider subscribing. It really helps this channel grow, plus it's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you change your mind. Thanks for watching, and here we go. First step in my process is to absolutely know what you want. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they want to go buy a car is they don't have a clue what they want. They think, oh, I need a car. They drive up to a dealership, salesman approaches them, and then convinces them what the salesman thinks they need. This is one of the worst things you can do, and the only way to get around that is to make sure that you do your research. You know ahead of time exactly what you want. I'm talking year, make, model, package, color, options, you name it. You need to know every detail about the vehicle that you want to buy. The second part of knowing what you want is to be sure that once you've done all the research, you know exactly that this is the car that you want. The worst thing that you can do is do all the work that we're about to talk about, find a good deal, and then go to the dealership and test drive the car for the first time and realize, wait a minute, this is not the car for me. So the best thing you can do is go to one of the expensive dealerships in your area. If you don't know who the expensive dealers in your area are, ask around, ask your friends, ask your family. They'll probably be able to tell you who the expensive ones are. Go to those places. Do not buy the car under any circumstances. Tell them you're just browsing, you're just testing, think I want to try one of those. They'll let you test drive the car. You'll have to sign some paperwork. You'll get a bunch of calls afterwards. You can just block them. Don't worry about it. And that way you can be sure that that's the car for you. You've done your research. You know what you want. You've test driven the car, and you're sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that's the car for you. This is the most important step. You need to figure this out first. The next step in this process is to figure out how are you going to pay for this car. You need to know this because it's going to help determine some things later down the road in this process. So this is really, really important. Are you going to pay cash? How much money are you going to put down? Are you going to finance it? Are you going to lease it? There's a whole new video on that coming next. Are you going to trade in your old car? The thing is, though, is you want to keep this information to yourself. How you're going to pay for your car is a bit of a negotiation point for a car salesman. Their goal is to make you finance the car through their lender, because their lender is going to give you normally a higher interest rate than what you can get pre-approved for outside, and the dealership is going to get a little bit of a kickback from the lender for making sure that they got that loan. Speaking of that dealer financing and the fact that their interest rate is most likely going to be higher than anything else you can get outside, the best thing you can do if you're going to finance is go to your bank or other lender, get pre-approved for a loan before you ever show up at the dealership so that you walk in with funding in your hand. That way, you don't have to use their financing once you're there. It's one more card up your sleeve in the negotiation process to make sure that you get the best deal possible. So if you're going to pay cash, you need to keep that information to yourself, because if they think that you're not going to finance through them, they're going to give you a worse deal on the car. There's a couple of ways you can go about keeping this information from them. If the car salesman asks, which they will, you need to be ready for this question. You can say things like, I don't know yet. Or in my case, I would say, I'm not sure. My wife and I are still discussing that detail. The point is, you need to be ready for the question. Whatever you do, don't tell them how you're going to pay for the car until you have negotiated the final price of the car. Similar thing goes with the trade-in. It's really important that if you're going to trade in a vehicle, you keep that information to yourself until the very end after the price of the new car has been negotiated. Then you can negotiate the trade-in value separately. If you tell them up front that you're going to trade in a car, they're going to do their best to lump that information in with the sale price of the car, and you're going to end up getting a worse deal for it. So be sure to keep your information to yourself, keep your decisions to yourself. At all costs, don't tell them anything that they don't need to know. What they need to know is that you're here to buy a car, and you want to negotiate the price of that car. If they tell you that they have to know how you're going to pay for that car in order to negotiate the price, there's a high chance that you're dealing with a slime ball and you may want to get out of there. But if you want to go ahead and move forward with them, the best thing you can do is to tell them that you want options. What's the price going to be if I pay cash? What's the price going to be if I finance? What's the price going to be if I trade in? All right, step 3 is all about preparing for step 4, because in this step, what we're going to do is prepare a standard message that we're going to be able to email to as many dealerships as we possibly can, because numbers are your friend when it comes to getting a good deal on a car. The more dealerships that you're in contact with, the more salesmen that you reach out to, the more quotes that you can get, the more likely you are to be able to get that price down as low as possible. So the goal for this standard message is to be short, concise, and to the point. We want to let the dealerships know what we're doing and what we're after so that they can get us a quote as fast as possible. So I'll put a copy up here on the screen of the last one that I used when we were buying my wife's Highlander. So what you can see is that it's short, it's concise, and it's to the point. We're letting the dealer know that we're contacting lots of dealerships, we're looking for the best price, and we're telling them exactly what we want in terms of the make, model, year, color, etc., all about that car. All right, step 4. This is where the real work begins. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where your make or break time spent on this is going to be everything. What we're going to do is mass contact dealerships, as many as you can in your area. As a metric for you, typically when I do this, I contact somewhere between 300 and 500 dealerships within a 400 or 500 mile radius of the Houston area. I look at dealerships in Dallas, San Antonio, Waco, Austin, all the small towns in between, you know, Lufkin and Diboll and all the others. The point is you need to contact as many dealerships as you can, because that's how you're going to understand what the true price of this car is. I'm not going to lie to you, this is a lot of work. You send lots of emails, you get lots of responses, you get lots of questions. Tracking is a difficult thing, but what you need to do is track the responses, identify the best deal, answer their questions as best you can, and plan to spend time on this. Plan to spend a few weeks, maybe even a few months doing this off and on, maybe on the weekends. The point is you want to spend time on this, because in general, the more time you spend on this, the better deal you're going to get, because the better you're going to understand the true value of that car. Now what's going to happen is you're going to get a wide spectrum of responses from these dealerships. You're going to get everything on the good side of, you're going to get dealers who will respond, they'll answer your questions, they'll talk to you via email, they'll give you a quote in writing, which is what you want, by the way. Always get your quote in writing with a VIN number for that vehicle. And you're going to get the complete other side. These are the guys who are going to respond and say, hey, thanks for the email, but I don't do this via email. You're going to have to come into my dealership and talk to me face to face. Give me a break. This is 2020, almost 2021. We can do this via email, or we can not do this. Don't forget that you are the customer. You define the terms. You define how this is going to work. If they're not working with you the way that you want to be worked with, ignore them. There are plenty of other dealers who will work with you the way that you want to be worked with. You're the one in control. You're the customer. You define the terms of engagement. This is how this works. This is how you get a good deal. So what's going to start happening is, as you start tracking responses and charting quote values, you're going to start seeing a curve appear. And this curve is really what we're looking for, because this curve tells us what the true value of the car is. You're going to get a lot of really high quotes. You're going to get a lot of really low quotes, but at the end of the day, when you collect enough data, you're going to start seeing this curve, and it's going to start approaching this minimum asymptote, okay? So once you get enough data points to figure out what that is, you kind of have a good idea what the minimum price you're going to get for that vehicle is. In my experience, once you sort of figure out what that curve is, nobody else is probably going to go below that number, because you've hit the low point of what a dealer is willing to go for, at least via email. I'll put a curve up here on the screen for one of the cars that I bought a long time ago so you can see what I'm talking about. That asymptote that we're approaching, that minimum value, that's generally speaking what you're going to get the car for. And this is the real power of collecting so many data points, is you get to know what the true value of the car is. One final detail about mass contacting these dealerships and going back and forth via email: do not give these guys your phone number under any circumstances, because if you do, your phone is going to blow up for the next year with follow-ups of these guys asking you about this stupid car that you're trying to buy. It's nothing against salesmen. It's part of their job. Following up the prospects is absolutely part of their job. That's how they make sales. You should absolutely expect this to happen. It's part of their job. Don't be offended by it. Don't get mad by it. Just don't give them your phone number. If you're on their website and they require a phone number for you to send the first message, just type in 999999999 and it'll go through and you'll be fine. Or make up some number, it doesn't really matter. The only person I ever give my phone number to is the person who I'm going to go buy the car from at the end, the person with the best price. And at that point, give them your phone number, talk to them. They're the dealer you're going to work with anyway. You need to talk to them, it's a good thing. So step 5, as soon as you've identified the dealer that you're going to work with, you've got the quote in writing, you're happy with the quote, it's all good, you're about to go purchase that car, you're about to drive over there, call up your insurance company and let them know that you're about to go purchase a car. They'll ask you a bunch of questions, but they will set you up on your insurance so that you can legally drive off the lot and not have to worry about anything if anything goes wrong. This is a really important step that most people forget, and it's a pain in the butt to do it at the dealer. It can be done, but it's just better to go ahead and do it up front. If you end up not getting the car for some reason, call them back up, tell them it didn't work out. They'll take it off, it's not a big deal. So finally, here we are at step 6. You've found the car, you've got the insurance, you've got the quote in writing, you've talked to the dealer on the phone. It's time to go after the deal. At this point, step 6 is all about making sure that you get the deal that you talked about, because unfortunately, like I mentioned before, 98% of the salesmen that I've worked with have been slimeballs. You have to be prepared for the worst. You have to be prepared to back out of the deal at the last minute. You have to be prepared when you get there to get up and leave. Do not fall in love with this car on the way over there. Do not get your hopes up. It could all go wrong even now. Even with all this work you've put in, it could still go wrong because, unfortunately, salesmen lie sometimes. Not all of them. Again, I've met some really good ones, but I've also dealt with some really bad ones. For example, quick story for you. Back in 2013, I was looking to buy a cheap Mazda 3. I found one, did this whole process, identified a car. They were going to sell it to me for $11,000 brand new off the lot. That was one of these cars they just couldn't get rid of because it was a stick shift. Got all the way to the dealer, and suddenly that $11,000 that we had talked about via email that I had in writing, didn't exist. I didn't send that email. I don't know what you're talking about. That car is $14,000. Well, it's, funny how things work, because when that happened, I, of course, was ready to get up at any point. I'm used to this. I stood up, I said, well, thanks anyway, idiot. I'm out of here. I stood up, I walked out, and I was getting in my car to leave. And as I was getting into my car to leave, the sales manager burst out the door, hey, wait a minute. And, suddenly the $11,000 is back on. So ended up getting a great deal on the car. I was obviously extremely mad at the whole situation, but the point is you have to be ready to leave. And sometimes leaving is the only way to get what you want. Next little tip for this part of the process is to bring a calculator or a computer with a spreadsheet like I do and check their math and make sure that the terms that are on the paperwork you're about to sign are the terms that you talked about. Make sure that this is the case, because unfortunately mistakes do happen. It's not always nefarious. They're not always trying to, get one under your nose or whatever, but just be sure to check the math, make sure everything's right. If you aren't a math person, bring somebody who is. Bring a family member, a friend. Sometimes the best thing you can do is bring a friend who will watch your back, who will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, this isn't what we talked about. We need to leave. Also, whatever you do, don't buy the add-ons. They're way overpriced. You can get all these things third party for half the price in most cases. It's a waste of money. Just don't do it. One thing that I think is important to reiterate, if you're going to buy a car, whether you finance it, lease, or pay cash, you need to make sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can afford it. And to know that, you need a budget. So do this. Click on the playlist on the screen right now, because in those videos, I show you how to make an advanced budgeting system that uses spreadsheets so that you can forecast your money far into the future. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.